Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Alex from MTG Keep It Casual, and today we will be teching the mimeoplasm. So the mimeoplasm is a bug commander, green, blue, black, and as the mimeoplasm enters the battlefield, you may exile 2 creature cards from graveyards. If you do, it enters the battlefield as a copy of one of those cards with a number of additional 1/1 counters on it equal to the power of the other card. Okay. So for example, when you cast in the mimeoplasm, you can grab out any creature from anyone's graveyard, including your own, of course. So you can grab out I don't know, you want them to become a Chaos the Unhallowed, and say the only creature is a Birds of Paradise in the grave for the moment. You will have them on a combined body with Birds of Paradise, so he'll be a 5/6. All right. So the mimeoplasm is a fun commander. Nothing too crazy in this deck. Just fun, casual, of course. All right. So we're gonna go into the mana base. 2 islands, 2 forests, 2 swamps, a tainted wood. I don't have any of the other tainted lands. The blue black one, I don't know what that one's called. Would be good in here too. Land of War Waste, and this is the only pain land in here. Mana Confluence. Add any mana to your mana pool for the price of 1 life. It's not bad. Minimo, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. School at Water's Edge. Oh, come on, focus. There we go. So, from what I understand, it kind of works like a Maze of Ith on legendary permanents. So, you can pay a blue, tap this, untap one of your legendary permanents, or one of your opponent's legendary permanents. So this is good in this deck for our own creatures because we run a lot of legendary creatures in here. And it's also a plus when they're swinging at you with their commander. You can just untap it. Command Beacon. This is a deck that relies heavily on your commander. So you want to run a Command Beacon in case he gets too expensive. Gaia's Cradle. This is an older land from Urza's Saga. So tap a green, add green to your mana pool. Or sorry, tap, add green to your mana pool for each creature you control. It's really good in any deck that has creatures, pretty much. Temple of the False God. I like this land. I put this land in pretty much every one of my commander decks. If you draw it on your first hand, you just, send it back. Command Tower, because we're playing Commander. Opulent Palace, I think it's called. So this is adding all our colors for us right here. It's almost another Command Tower with a slight downside, coming in tapped. Baron Moor, this is our only cycle land. There's that moment where you can just pitch it and cycle it to the graveyard to get some value. That's what I mainly do with this. We have the Scrylands, Temple of Melody, Temple of Mystery, and Temple of Deceit. I like the Scrylands. They're okay. Simic Growth Chamber and Golgari Rot Farm. What's the third one? It's green. No, what would it be? I'm missing one, though. I don't know what it is. The deck works just fine with this mana base, though, so I don't mess with it. A Wasteland, for when they have some kind of problematic land, like a Maze of Ith or something else. Woodland Cemetery, Drowned Catacomb, and Hinterland Harbor. These are all pretty good lands from, what was that, Innistrad, M13. They usually come in untapped almost all the time. We have our Shocklands, Breeding Pool, Watery Grave, and Overgrown Tomb. Really good. You fetch for them. And our fetch lands to fetch for our Shocklands. Polluted Delta, Verdant Catacombs, Misty Rainforest, all in our bug colors that we need. And we have the Alpha Dual Lands. Just kidding, these are proxies. But someday I hope to get them. This is a Underground Sea, so it's pretty much a Shockland with no downside. It's amazing. Tropical Island and the Bayou. Down by the Bayou, yeah, yeah. Okay. That was lands. Let's go into enchantments. Animate Dead. Pretty staple enchantment for a reanimator type of deck. It's a 2 cost. So you pretty much play it in. You grab a creature card from your graveyard. And it's going to have a slight downside of having a -1 attack. But that's really nothing. You get a lot of awesome ETB triggers with this and other types of things. A lot of the time you're not even attacking. Sometimes you're just using them for their effect. Dance of the Dead. This is pretty much another Animate Dead, but it comes into play tapped. And so let's see. At the end of his or her upkeep, its controller may pay additional 1 and a black to untap it. Yeah. Let's see. What is this card? So it comes into play tapped pretty much with a 1/1 counter. Treat this creature as though it were just summoned, so no haste. Creature does not untap during its controller's untap step at the beginning of his or her upkeep. Okay, at the beginning of your upkeep, you can pay 2 and you can untap the creature. Attrition, you sacrifice a creature and you destroy a non-black creature. This is awesome because you can do it at instant speed, and a lot of the times it benefits you to be sacrificing your creatures because black is sadistic like that and likes to do that kind of thing. And it takes out one of their creatures, so. Monastery Siege, I pretty much always pick cons on this one. So I draw an additional card and then I discard a card. So it's really nice for filling your graveyard. Throw some creatures in there. Animate them. Pernicious Deed. This is a really cool board wipe. And sometimes it can even be one-sided. If they're really low to the ground and you have your big beefy monsters out there, you can just take out all their little tokens or whatever. Pretty handy. We have Necromancy. So it's pretty much another Animate Dead. Except you can play it at instant speed, but if you do, you have to bury it or sacrifice it in nowadays terms at the end of the turn. So you can do this on your opponent's turn if you want and get a cool ETB trigger off of one of these creatures you'll be seeing here in a moment. Pattern of Rebirth. Now, this card is pretty broken in my opinion. So you can put a Pattern of Rebirth on your, I don't know, Birds of Paradise. I like using Birds of Paradise. So when it dies, you can use some kind of sacrifice outlet for it, or just chump block with it. So it'll die, and then you can search your library for a creature card, and then put it directly into play. So I'll do that and search up for, I don't know, Gingataxius or something really messed up. Yeah, you went from a 1-drop to a 10-drop. Or just whatever you really need. It's just situational. But it always works out pretty well. Next we're going to go into Instants, and we have 13 of them. Noxious Revival. So this is a really cool card for protecting your graveyard, or even removing something problematic out of your opponent's graveyard. If they try to target something in there, you can just Noxious Revival it for free or 1 green mana. It's useful in so many ways. You can return anything you need from your graveyard to the top of your library, and then just draw into it, play your card. Rapid Hybridization. You destroy a creature at instant speed for 1 blue. That one and Pongify are pretty much the exact same thing. and it's very, very good card. They get a little 3/3 dude, but that's nothing. Most of the time you're going to be having bigger guys than they are anyways, animating them out of your graveyard or your opponent's graveyards. Got Entomb, pretty staple card for a reanimator strategy. So you search up a card in your library, you're going to put it into your graveyard, and you can do like a Trestodon and then animate dead it on turn 3. It's pretty nuts. Blow up all their lands or artifacts if they got Soul Ring or something like that. Epiphany in the Drown Yard. This is a newer one from the Innistrad. So you're going to reveal top X cards of your library and separate them into 2 piles. An opponent chooses one of the piles, put the pile in your hand, the other in your graveyard. So it's a mega fact or fiction, pretty much. If you can pump 5 or 6 into X, usually works out pretty well for me. And it fills up your graveyard. That's what we want to do. Fill up that graveyard. Same thing with Read the Ruins. So draw X cards. For each card drawn this way, you discard a card unless you sack a permanent. So both of those downsides could work out pretty well for us, because you can discard a card that you might want in your graveyard or sacrifice a permanent. Say they're going to target your creature with some kind of exile spell. You can just do this and then sack your permanent in response. Go for the Throat. Destroy target non-artifact creature. This hits a lot of things. Just their commanders. Big, huge, scary creatures for 2 at instant speed. One of the best creature removal spells in my opinion. Hero's Downfall. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. For that 1 extra mana, it's so much value just to hit a planeswalker too. Putrefy. Putrefy reads, destroy target creature or artifact. So that's pretty much always in handy. I'll just draw into this, and there's usually always a target for this. Sultai Charm. Pretty much everything is relevant on the choose one. So destroys a monocolored creature, destroy a target artifact or enchantment, or draw 2 cards and discard a card. Got Beast Within. I love this card. Destroy any permanent, and then you put a 3/3 green beast creature token in the battlefield. Not you, but whoever owned that permanent gets to put a 3/3 green beast creature token, which is very little downside when you're destroying their Kalia or whatever. Fact or Fiction, great card. It draws you cards and puts cards in your graveyard. Exactly what we want. Insidious Dreams. So as an additional cost to play Insidious Dreams, discard X cards from your hand, search your library for X cards, then shuffle your library and put those cards on top of it in any order. This is great if you have too many lands in your hand, or if you want to pitch some big fatties in the graveyard to reanimate them, or if you're just looking for an answer. You can just pitch in a few useless cards you don't need. Search for any cards, put them at the top of your library. So you can do this and search for a draw spell and draw a whole bunch of cards off that draw spell and draw into the cards you search for. It's a really good card. Next, we are going to go into sorceries, and there are 17 sorceries. Okay. We have Reanimate, very staple card. You play 1, reanimate a creature from your graveyard, and it's you're going to lose life to the casting cost, but that's a very little downside for the value you get. Farseek, search for target dual land. No, Farseek is really good. Searches you up pretty much anything, any kind of land that you need for fixing. Nature's Lore, search your deck for a forest and put it into play. Shuffle your deck afterwards. So that can also search you up, like shock lands and stuff, as long as they have that forest in there. Demonic Tutor, one of the best tutors, if not the best tutor. Search your deck for any answer you need. And yeah, just for 2 mana. Diabolic Intent. So as an additional cost to cast this, you have to sacrifice a creature, but that oftentimes can work out really well for you. So it's often a upside when you sacrifice your own creatures, just so you can reanimate it and get another ETB trigger off of it or something like that. Then you search for any card. It's like a Demonic Tutor, really good. Recollect, this is pretty much a regrowth. I'm just using this one because I like the full artwork on it. 3 sorcery speed, return any card from your graveyard to your hand. Gaze of Granite, this is a great card. It's like Pernicious Deed, but all at once, pretty much. You got to pay the 3 and then X. Often it could be better. I don't know why more people don't play Gaze of Granite in their decks. This card is always really cool. Always works out really well for me. Explosive Vegetation, just some good ramp. Search your library for 2 basic lands, put them into the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. Splendid Reclamation. So we're going to be just chucking a whole bunch of cards into our graveyards. So when we play this card, we can return up to maybe 4 or 5 lands off of Splendid Reclamation. We just get that much further in the game. Damnation. Destroy all creatures that can't be regenerated. Sorcery speed. Just a really good board wipe. Traumatize. This card is really good in this deck. Target player puts the top half of his or her library rounded down into his or her graveyard. Sometimes we do this to ourselves. Sometimes we'll do it to our opponent if we think or know that they have good stuff. That's the nice thing about blue. We got the knowledge. So just throw half the deck into the graveyard and start reanimating out their fatties or your fatties. Living Death. This is a great card. Sometimes, even if you're not early game, if it's just an early game, you know, you can just go 5 and they're going to have to sacrifice all their creatures. Gets around that indestructible. And, yeah. Oh, it also, late game, it's really crazy because if you have a bunch of creatures in your graveyard, they pretty much swap out onto the battlefield. So this can be just a complete game changer. Life's Finale, you destroy all creatures, search your opponent's library for 3 creature cards, you put them into his or her graveyard. So, yeah, I'll target the opponent who has what I think is going to have the best stuff. Just bring them out with all my animate spells. Let's see. Seasons Past. So this is like a mega regrowth pretty much. I think this card is really good. I just started playing with it and it's crazy. It just brings back 4 to 5 cards from my graveyard to my hand usually. So it reads, return any number of cards with different converted mana costs from your graveyard to your hand. Put Seasons Past the bottom of its owner's library. Pretty good. Ever After. Same thing for this one. It's new, but I really like it in this deck. So this is pretty much animate dead for 2 creatures on there. They come back as zombies, and you're going to put it at the bottom of your library. Same thing. But you can always research these cards back up with your tutor spells if you need to. See the Unwritten. This card in here, I like this card. It's not really an animate spell. It's more of like if you're playing like mono green or just really huge creatures or something. But it works out pretty well with all the huge creatures we have in this deck. We usually get that Ferocious trigger off. If you control a creature with power 4 or greater, you may put 2 creature cards from the battlefield instead of 1. after you reveal those top 8 cards, put in 2 huge creatures. Pretty cool. Throws you pretty far ahead of the game. Decree of Pain. This is an awesome board wipe in a 3 to 4 player match. Even 2 player can be pretty crazy. But destroy all creatures. They can't be regenerated. Draw a card for each creature destroyed this way. It also has cycling. If they have a bunch of little dudes on the ground, you can just cycle it, give them all -2, -2. Next, we have artifacts. There are only 3 artifacts. Soul Ring, of course. Of course. You guys knew this was coming. Freaking Soul Ring. Okay. We have Birthing Pod. So, I'll just play this out for 3, and I'll take the 2 life usually. And then I'll pay the 1 and take the 2 life again, but you sacrifice a creature. Search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost 1, plus the sacrifice creature's converted mana cost. Put that card in the battlefield, then shuffle your library. You can activate this only anytime you can cast a sorcery. So yeah, this just keeps throwing stuff in your grave and bringing stuff out from your deck into the battlefield. So it's really good. Whip of Erebos. So gives all your creatures lifelink. So that's cool. This is pretty much our only lifelink card in here. Sometimes I'll just search for this if I'm getting low on life. Put out in the battlefield. Also, it's a nice recurring spell. So you're gonna tap 4, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It's gonna gain haste, exile it at the beginning of the next end step. Here's the only bad part: if it would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting anywhere else. So that's pretty much our biggest weakness in this deck, is getting our stuff exiled. Because once that happens, there's no more recurring our stuff. We have to start depending on their stuff, and if they have small little weak dudes, then that's gonna suck for us. Which does happen sometimes. So you can activate this only anytime at sorcery speed, so pretty much on your turn. Sometimes I'll do that when I really need it to get a good ETB trigger off. Next we have creatures, and there are 25 of them. I'm going to start off with Birds of Paradise. So just play him out for 1 green, and then he adds just rainbow mana for you. Sacred Tribe Elder. This card is really cool. I like this in most of my commander decks that run green. He has his own sack trigger, and he searches for a basic land for you. Both are awesome. You just block and then sack and then search. There's so much value just off this common card. Could have easily been uncommon. Fern Heaven Elf. I don't know if I said that right. So enters battlefield. You search your library for a basic land. Put it in the battlefield tapped. If you do, you shuffle your library. She's okay. Reclamation Sage. So when it enters the battlefield, you destroy a target artifact or enchantment. Pretty much there's always going to be a target for Reclamation Sage, and it's pretty cheap for what it does, and you get a body, and you can reoccur it. Magus of the Will. So you're going to tap 3, exile Magus of the Will until the end of turn. You may play cards from your graveyard. If a card would be put into your graveyard from anywhere, exile that card instead. Now, that's totally fair, because replaying anything from your graveyard can be incredibly broken. That's why Yawgmoth's Will is so expensive. But this can just play back anything, whether it's removal or more reanimation spells from your deck. Just comes in handy. Ewit. Ewit is a staple, probably in anything green. I think most of you guys know what this does, but when she enters the battlefield, you return a target card from your graveyard to your hand. So she can be easily abused with reanimation spells. And just getting her into the battlefield once and returning anything you need from your graveyard is incredibly valuable. Solemn Simulacrum, Sad Robot. Everyone knows this guy, but when he enters the battlefield, you're going to search for basic land, put in a play tapped. When he dies, you draw a card. So, what's not to like about